a mic check with Barbara, just to make sure she's all set on her end?
Yeah. Barbara, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right, we can hear her.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh,
There
okay.
we go.
Now we know.
Now we know.
Okay. Beautiful. All right, so the agenda tonight, we've got call to order is done. In the light item budget, we're doing information technology, police department, fire department, Department of Public Works, town road maintenance, snow and ice removal, town administrator, economic development, historical commission. In the annual town meeting warrant articles, we'll take care of the betterment committee, road construction repairs and maintenance, capital improvement plan, water and sewer departments, wastewater treatment plant clarifier coating and painting, prefabricated office building for the water treatment system, Stallion Hill water tank replacement, St. Anne's tank sampling and control building, stormwater MS4 compliance. We'd go into special town meeting warrant articles, but we'll be plenty busy before then. We have a set of minute meetings for February 21st to go over, some new old business, public access, and adjournment. So the first thing we'll deal with is the information technology budget, and Jeremy's here to answer any questions. The real increase in that particular set of line items is in Jeremy's salary because he's been reclassified this year, right? Is that the correct? Yeah. So he's in a new role. I think it's in here, grade 7 to grade 8, typical, outlay to replace computers, and then purchase a service for Exceller, which is our, kind of common permitting software that we use across the street that's supposed to make the whole permitting process faster. That's what it's supposed to do, right? The one permit can go electronically and be signed off by all the departments as it goes through its process. Is there anything else I missed that you'd like to highlight?
No.
Well, I just had a question. On the capital outlay, there were several things it appears that you recommended that were not approved to go forward at this time. You're talking about upgrade to the PSC phone system and some of this stuff. Could you elaborate on that, what your plans are going forward, or what?
We ended up putting that in the capital.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's in the capital.
We just moved it around to a different spot.
I must have missed that.
Well, actually, because, see, PSC phone system,
Yeah.
you need to know that means Public Safety Complex. It's one of those, acronyms you have to kind of be familiar with. All right, any other questions? So then, I would,
Why don't we just do the one big motion at the end for all the things?
well, actually, no, because like when Heather gets here and Chief Grasso, they're both gonna be here for a while. So even if we get them, I'd like to take care of the ones where they're not gonna be here to answer lots of questions. Right, does Jeremy actually, do you wanna go through the,
I thought last week's process worked well. For the
Okay,
departments
then we'll
that
do
we
that.
had nothing done, we make a single motion and incorporate them all in the end.
okay? All right, then, so we'll do a motion for the information technology at 331019, and then we'll move on to the police department.
What else do you need? It's for IT is important. Everybody's talking about AI, which has been around for many years, but now they're saying it's important. You got enough money? What else do you need to make all these departments more efficient? Because that's kind of your role, is making sure each department is.
I try to make sure that we're giving everybody exactly what they need without going completely crazy. My budget has been increasing every single year. I think when I first started, we were around the $100,000 mark. I'm up to $300,000 now after 5 years. So I have been improving every year, adding a couple things. I think Sturbridge is running really well. One of the budget items is the Nutanix cluster that is at the Public Safety Complex and the Town Hall, which was a big item this year. So that is a brand-new server system that's going to be installed at both buildings. 7 years ago, we replaced them, so now we're replacing them again. That's the big ticket item. Other than that, we have been improving software and hardware as much as we can.
Are the departments integrated into one's main high-end server, or is it all
Town hall
independently located? They're all independent?
The Town Hall has a system, and the Public Safety Complex has a system.
Everybody else is independent?
Well, the Town Hall has the center office building, DPW Senior Center is all in the town hall system, and the Public Safety Complex has their own fire PD.
Okay, and you work
Two
close,
systems, and they do talk back and forth.
you work close with all the departments, fire, and police and everything like that, as far as what their needs are? Is that the way it works?
Yeah, the chiefs talk to me and they tell me what they need.
Yeah, because that's important, you know, obviously efficiency-wise, it's, like, IT is one way, not all of it, of course, but important potential way when you figure out what you need. And they automate it, right?
And just vote them all at
Yes.
once.
Okay, so
And, yeah, we work together and decide what everybody needs. I don't just make recommendations and saying this person needs that, this person needs that. We all discuss what everybody's needs are and we go from there.
But
Okay.
if you want, we'll move it on. Want to do that?
So then, while we're taking up all your things, you've already touched base on this, so in the capital improvement plan, there's two items that that are in there that fall under your purview. The Nutanix,
Yes.
the upgrade that you talked about was the server both here and there that back up to each other in both places, so we have backups. And then the public safety complex phone system upgrade.
Yes. That phone system is extremely old. It was here before my time. We're on a Cisco system at the town hall, center office building, senior center, DPW, and I just want to add the PD and fire department on the same phone system that we have.
Yeah, I'd like to do.
How about I make a motion that the finance committee recommended town meeting approve the information technology budget of $331,019.
Second.
Okay, let me just write that down.
Who seconded that?
Larry. So we're on process C3, page C3, sorry. 331019, MH, LN. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? And abstaining. I'm sorry. The two of you, I didn't get your votes.
In favor?
In favor, opposing, or abstaining?
Favor.
Okay, so 1, 2, 7 to nothing?
Yep.
All right.
I do I worked with DPW to do the security cameras.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you want to talk about that now that I'm here, and if it sounds like
Yeah,
you're-
well, if you're here, you might as well.
and if I can leave after this sounds great.
Could I just add one thing? Could the person who's caller C identify themselves? Oh, you're in two
That's
numbers?
me.
Okay.
Jeremy, my audio still, it says the microphone's working, but it's a go-to thing, I think.
Maybe you should stop by the IT
So,
office when you
I'll
get to
heckle
work
Jeremy
tomorrow and have a
tomorrow.
seat.
We did fix that, I thought.
All right,
Well,
thanks.
now it shows up that I have a microphone, but I have a little X next to my sound on go-to, but I have it everywhere else, like it's test line and everything, so.
Okay, if you'd like to go over the
It'll work.
security camera.
Yes, so we want to improve the DPW with security cameras. We would like to add cameras to look over the gas pumps and also the buses. So I got a couple quotes for that. We're looking around $10,000, I think it was, for security cameras. That way, we're really not watching the pumps or the buses. There's no security cameras at the DPW whatsoever.
I guess so to clarify, there are no security cameras there now. The ones you're putting in are the first set to cover those areas.
Yes. And they'll go back to the town hall or the public safety complex servers. So PD or town hall will be able to view them whenever they want to.
Now, that's useful. Okay. And will they be motion detected then as well? So if it detects someone's there, it'll just pop up maybe on the...
No, they're just on all the time. They only record with motion, but they're on all the time. So it'll record motion, so we'll not be recording if there's no motion, but they can view them whenever they like.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, you know, if you're in the dispatch center, if for some reason someone pulls up, it would pop up just to let them know there's a car at the, or a truck or whatever may be parked
We haven't
there.
tried doing that. I imagine you probably could do that with a motion sensor or a notification. You can follow somebody as well. But the security cameras are very high-tech at the public safety complex, and here, you could put a square around somebody and it'll follow them throughout the process. Same thing as a school.
What was the driver behind this? This is new, right? We haven't had this before?
So we don't have any cameras at the DPW.
What was the driver? Why now?
We just thought for more security with the pumps, being able to keep track of who's going to the pumps and who's not. They do have keys, kind of tell you, but we just don't have any security watching over the pumps.
Gasoline going up and everything, it might be more reason for somebody to go in and get some gas now?
Yeah, now that I'm talking about them, that there's no cameras there, yeah.
Not hard to fathom.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was gonna say, I kind of would like to hesitate on discussing that in depth on what's over there and why we would want to put cameras up. I kind of maybe refrain a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, okay, got it.
All right. I think we have all the information we're going to want at this point. Are we expecting Heather this evening?
Yes,
I
she's
believe so,
coming.
but
She's in the office doing some work right now, so as it gets closer to her, she will be arriving.
Okay. All right, then. Next on the agenda then is the police department, which in the detail budget, I think I've already blown past. Nope, there's page C7.
I just want to say that Jeremy is very, very communicative with us at the police department for all our needs when it comes to IT. Very responsive. If I need something, I'm on the phone with him. Next thing I know, he's pulling in his truck. So he's very, very good with
Fantastic,
that.
yeah, that's good.
Okay. So I know that Kathy, you've met with the chief,
I
right?
did meet with him on Tuesday, yes.
And any concerns with his budget?
No, actually, well, I had never had the police department before, so I think as with when I had the fire department, it was rather eye-opening, actually, all they do, and, I asked them about special events, because, of course, there's that in the, I guess it's in the betterment, and he had a whole list of all the events that, that doesn't even cover what we give him for the special events, and just even the time that goes into some of those bigger special events, as far as, like the Pan Mass Challenge, is a big one. The Harvest Fest. I mean, there are ones I had never heard of. Obviously, they're smaller and don't have as much impact, but it is still a long list, and you still have to prepare for them and have people on duty for them. So, I learned a lot. I mean, even though technically there's only 2 officers out usually on each shift, but at the same time, during the day shift, there's the 2 school resource officers, probably forgetting one too. You probably have a court person.
Court, yeah, during the day, we have a court officer.
Court
2
officer
school
as
resource
well.
officers. Patrol could be
And
anywhere
couple-
from 2 to 4 patrols, depending on
You
what the
say
schedule
2
was.
to 3, yeah. So,
Yeah, 2 to 3 patrols, then you have the command staff present, myself and the administrative lieutenant. On the second shift, you have the operations lieutenant. So the day shift is heavier staffed always during the weekdays than
Right.
on a weekend. A weekend day shift could be two patrols on it. That's 2, because there's no court officers, there's no school resource officers.
Right.
All those positions are Monday through Friday.
How's the new detective doing?
He's doing very well.
Is
He's-
he
he-
kind of getting, like, the productivity, getting
Yep.
some of the load off the other officers?
He absolutely is, and he was baptized by fire right off the bat with several big cases in town that we had to deal with right away. A couple of things that were unique that really would have bogged down our patrol officers trying to do these lengthy investigations. In addition, he's still been going to schools. We send him to as many schools as this. For example, he's just finishing up tomorrow, will be his last day in a 2-week narcotic investigation school. So
Nice.
we're continuously training, trying to get him as high speed as we can. And he does a lot of stuff now, like our background investigations for our new hires. And so instead of having a patrol officer taking off the road to go do a background investigation with his lengthy, the detective will go out and take care of stuff like that.
Keep the feet on the street, huh?
Yep, keep the boots on the ground out there. Yep.
Makes sense. With all the stuff you hear in the news, the immigration and the like, and, you know, some coming into Mass, and any issues, any, are you guys worried about that, or is it?
No, we've had no issue, you know, no different complaint status at any of the hotels than we historically have had. You know, some of our hotels we get calls for service there, a lot. So, but there hasn't been any substantial increases or anything of noteworthy to say, yeah, well, this is a problem. So no, it has not been.
That's good.
The police DTS scheduling software, is that, how do I want to put it? Adjustable for each town, like, right, we still work this 6-2 or 6-4?
4-2. We work a 4-2 schedule. So what happens is, the reason why we wanted to upgrade our software, I think I heard the gentleman the other night saying, well, can you do more with less? So what we're gonna try to do is get this software in here that's gonna free up my scheduling lieutenant, who spends a lot of time. Our schedule is very fluid. You know, you think you got everything laid out for the month or the week or whatever, somebody calls out sick, vacation, somebody's having family problems, this, that, so things are changing. Jobs come in details, Verizon, National Grid. So this new software will allow a page-out system that puts this open assignments to dispatchers and police alike, where they can just be on their phone instead of calling in, placing calls, and respond, I want it. Now this software will, instead of the lieutenant now going through the hours, there's a certain way of seniority that you have to backfill all these positions. So instead of doing that, the software is gonna be able to say, dessert, you win the bid, you get the shift. So it's gonna save a lot of time for me to give him some other work to do, so.
So that's a new purchase. Does it come with training built into it?
Training, it will be included, yep.
Okay, and it'll be your programming lieutenant, I would imagine it's the two lieutenants and yourself are gonna be trained?
Yep, I'll train my supervisors as well, all the sergeants. We already demoed it I wanted to demo, I had a 2-month demo with this product where I brought it in, I told the company, before we go with this purchase, I wanna see if we like it and if it works for Sturbridge. So we had it come in for free for 2 months, demoed it for 2 months. We ran 2 schedules at the same time, which was a lot of work, but when you're making an investment like this, you want to make sure that the product's going to work and work for the town, so.
And does it come with a subscription fee, like, so next year?
It will be the same fee every year, yep.
Oh,
So
it's
it goes, yeah, so it goes by the amount of people, which most scheduling software does. So this may be, I don't know the exact number, 0 to 50 employees, this particular cost covers that. If you go above that, then it goes to another cost.
Like so many seats and, yeah.
Right.
No, this is good. I mean, I can see where that's gonna be a huge benefit, so.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I think in the past couple years, there was talk of like a mental health expert on the force or whatever, that so when people are having more of a mental health issue, rather than all of the police showing up, it would be maybe somebody who has some experience in that. Has
Yeah.
that been done, or is that?
Oh, yeah,
working out?
we 2 years ago, we were fortunate enough to secure a grant, 100% funded through the Department of Mental Health. And the first year was a little less. This past year, I think we wrote it for $110,000, somewhere around there. That covers all her costs. She's assigned to the station full-time. She's not an employee of the town of Sturbridge, but she is assigned to the police department, and we pay her salary, so she is there. So, and she comes in on her off time, she may adjust her schedule, so we do handle quite a few mental health calls. And she also helps us with follow-ups on drug overdoses, and she's been a tremendous asset, and we're gonna keep writing that grant every year, and hopefully it gets funded, because she does do a lot of follow-up for us for mental health. Domestic violence victims, she's there, and she's been in place now for 2 years and been doing a fantastic job.
Oh, that's great to hear, thank you.
If I could add, Kevin, just quickly, she also sits on our opioid committee, our internal group that is working to utilize the opioid funding, and she's just a phenomenal, she's just a great asset to the town, to echo the chief's comment. She's just great. We're very lucky to have her.
So, Kevin, this is a department budget where there's no changes in staffing. You asked for 2 new staff, you didn't get that. There's no material changes in services or supplies other than the new scheduling software. So I'll make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend town meeting approve the police department budget in the amount of $3,991,275.
Second.
Okay. HLM, okay. Any further questions or comments there? All those in favor? All right, that's the line item budget, 7-0. All right, so moving into the betterment and capital, where you do have some items. In the betterment, I mean, special events overtime, you've explained in the past, AEDs, the automated defibrillators.
Yep.
So is that in each car, or each
Yep.
vehicle has
Yep.
it? So that's what we're replacing? Is that an annual thing, or do you replace that like every 5 years?
No,
3 years?
I'm gonna take a guess here. The ones that we currently have are probably about 10 years old.
Oh, okay.
So, they're just due to, and we keep them the same as the fire department, so whatever the fire department, so if we're on a scene and we're doing CPR,
Knows how to use it, yeah.
everybody knows how to use it, and if they need to take the patient now and take custody of that patient, we can just undo our leads, hook it onto their machine, and they can continue to march, and there's no interruption in patient care.
Okay, right. And now, Emergency Operations Center Smart Board and Display, is that basically a television in the lobby that tells them who's in the office and who isn't?
No, so what will happen is, say a tornado happens to strike Sturbridge or something like that happens. We will be able to track stuff real time and be able to, when we have people in the emergency operating center, we can have stuff up on the board. It will be able to be a touch screen where we can, move stuff to the side. Say we're tracking what roads we haven't checked yet. We can use that board for numerous different items during an emergency situations. It's for the actual EOC, it's for the.
Now I know exactly what you're saying, yeah.
So, it's not just a
Like an information display board when we came in,
No.
that's what I had in my head.
No.
But now I understand that you're using it in the emergency center.
Yeah.
All right. And crosswalk signs?
Yep, if you notice, when you go through town, you'll see, usually in the springtime, we put out the signs that say crosswalk in the center of the road, and they're on these rubber barriers that try to keep them from getting blown off by the cars or whatnot, but we haven't gotten new ones in quite a while, and every year, you'll also, when you drive through town, you'll see some of them get run over, so they get ruined over the years, so it's time that we just replace them.
In the capital improvement, I mean, we have a new administrative vehicle, which is, the chief and the lieutenants would probably use, correct? 'Cause
Command
it's-
vehicle, yeah.
It's not the exact same thing as a police cruiser. We tried to clarify that. So it's not a fully equipped police cruiser, it's a command vehicle.
Right, it's still responding to calls, but it's got a lot less equipment in it. You're not having a computer in there, you're not having radar in there, you're not having a cage in there, so the equipment's a lot different.
So are you exhibiting the new uniform there, or is that the
No,
other?
this is the traditional uniform that we had, and what you can see is, this shirt is roughly, I may get the numbers mixed, about $150 for a short sleeve shirt, and about $160 or $70 for pants, because they're all custom made. And it's just too expensive, and the lag time on these uniforms, we hire a new officer, and we're waiting months to get these uniforms in, so we want to get something that's still looking professional, but you can go to the store, like the police supply store in Worcester, we have to go to Cranston, Rhode Island right now to get fitted and everything for our uniforms, which is time consuming. You got to send an officer down there. It's at least an hour down, depending on traffic, hour back, getting fitted, then the delay in the process and the cost. So the new uniforms we're looking at will probably be about almost half the price, maybe $70-80 for pants and shirt, pants and shirts. So we're going to cut that cost down. And I still want the gray and black, but I formed the uniform committee, and they're getting uniforms established that we are going to ultimately pick from, and hopefully if I have any say in it, it's going to be still next year.
That's good. So the batteries, the LED batteries, where are they used for? Should that be in the operational budget or betterment? Is that used for?
The AED batteries?
Yeah, it says AED batteries, 80.
Yeah, it's the automated defibrillators.
Oh, that's part of the.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's,
Part
so,
of the package for that? thing?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
it's replacement batteries, yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention that the uniforms will be changing, and it will be quite a cost savings for all the members of the department.
Yeah, especially initial startup for our new people, because we buy everybody's uniforms when they get hired, so.
Okay, any other questions related to the police expenses in the capital improvement plan or in the betterment? All right, any other questions for Chief Dessert? No. Great. Well, thank you very much. I think it's.
Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Yep. Thank you.
Thought I heard someone speak.
Yeah.
All right, next thing up is the fire department, same page, C7 on the thing, so the line item budget. I forget who the liaison to fire is.
I don't know, it's not me this year.
Yeah, I didn't see anything unusual from,
Okay.
so,
Then go for it if you want.
Oh, just one question. So no staffing changes as well with your department there, but, do we have people on a SAFER grant? We're starting to see the increase in the town piece? No, we don't have
No,
any of that.
the SAFER grant ended a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we didn't pick up any new ones on the new grant. All set then. Go ahead, Ken.
the only question, you put it, did you put it for 2 extra people also?
I did.
So, and that was, I guess, select person that decided not to put it in there. Is that, what was the rationale behind that? Is it?
Yeah, that's all right.
Behind
Yeah,
the
2 more
request,
people, yeah.
we're trying to get to a staffing level that allows us to provide service to include 2 fully staffed ambulances and/or 1 fully staffed ambulance and a fully staffed engine company. To do that, I need 5 people on duty, and right now I don't have that.
So you.
Kevin,
you
if I
called it-
could jump in on that?
Sure. I think it was you,
So,
Robin, right? Yeah.
yes, the chief did request, and at this point, we decided not to add this year. We did add 2, I believe, in January of last year. There had been an agreement for 1. As part of a labor discussion, we agreed that we would, it's 6 months in, hire 2 instead of 1 for the full year, which effectively increased the following year's budget. So we absorbed it in that first year because we only hired 2 for 6 months as opposed to 1 for 12 months. And then that, of course, permanently increases the number. So we couldn't add more at this point because we've already increased the overall number by 1. We are in the process of negotiations with the firefighters. The board has looked at a preliminary MOA. We have been successful. We are discussing that at some point in the next 3 years, we would certainly consider if the budget warrants increasing a bit more. We're looking to comparable surrounding towns. I know there are certain numbers that the chief and the team at fire would like to get to, and I think it's doable, but it needs to be phased in so we can absorb it comfortably in the budget.
Go ahead, Mike, if you have a question.
Just so I understand the numbers, you said you need to get to 5 people. I assume that's 5 people per shift is what
Correct.
you need?
On duty, yes.
Does 2 more full-time people give you what you need? Or to get to 5 people on shift every shift, how many more full-timers do you need?
Yeah, I think like the TA said, we're looking to phase this in over a period of time because the reality of it is it can't happen all at once. So in order for us to get to the number we want and be cognizant of the town's finances and the current state of the economy, it's something we have to look at over a longer period of
I
time.
understand the phase-in, but I'm trying to understand how many bodies we have today and what's the number you need to get to.
So
your
currently,
target?
we have 12 on-duty firemen, 12 firemen that are on duty, 3 different shifts. 3 shifts, 4 on a shift. So that gives us 12.
Yeah.
We're looking to get to 15 first to get to 3 shifts of 5. That would be the next big goal for us.
So 3 more staff will get you to what you'd like, and we already have 12. Okay.
And I just wanted to, I know you said it, and I didn't note it at the time. That gives you 1 ambulance, and what vehicle is it that it would be able to?
So 5 would allow us to do 2 different things. It would allow us to staff 2 ambulances fully,
Okay.
or 1 ambulance and 1 fire apparatus, an engine company or a ladder company. Generally, when you're talking fire apparatus, first out the door is an engine company.
Okay.
3 people in an engine company is really a minimum, a very, very minimum, but it's an accepted minimum. So we would be able to staff the ambulance full-time and have an officer and 2 firefighters that staffed an engine company all the time if we had 5 people. Or we would have 4 firefighters available to man 2 ambulances, which is becoming more the trend in our town as far as call volume. More and more frequently, we're getting back-to-back or multiple simultaneous calls, and we're finding the need to have the personnel to be able to respond more than one ambulance to medical calls, as opposed to calling mutual aid.
This staff is based on full-time staff, and you got 5 people sitting there waiting for these, well, I say sitting there, but 5 people handling these calls throughout the day. But you're also supplementing that with call staff, or?
So currently, we have 3 call members.
That's it? Your call members?
And out of the 3, I can't tell you the last time I saw any one of them.
So the call department is down to 3.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Kevin,
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
I can endorse what the chief said about that trend with respect to ambulances. For an extraneous reason, I have happened to spend a lot of time at Harrington and in the ER and the patient floors, and I can tell you that ambulances just keep coming. It's nobody's surprised when all 3 bays are filled. Patients in the waiting room who have less than acute conditions because of the triage protocols have to wait longer and longer, because while that 6-year-old was, let's say, was up all night, you got heart attacks, you got somebody coming in with a knife sticking in their neck, you got 3 people jumping on a druggie to just not let that guy get loose, and it's just going on and going on and going on. What the chief said is true.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, there's a general misunderstanding amongst the public that if I go by ambulance, I'm going to be seen at the hospital sooner than if I go and walk in on my own. The reality of it is the hospitals are trained now to triage every individual that walks in the door, and they're going to prioritize the treatment whether you walk in on your own or whether you come in by ambulance. But the problem is the general misunderstanding that if I go by ambulance, I'll be seen quicker. So more people will be inclined to call for an
But
ambulance.
the ambulance, we bill for ambulance service here in town, correct?
Yes, we do.
So,
Yes,
You
we do.
bill if I take a ride. If you show up and I don't seek treatment, I don't get a bill, right?
If we don't transport you, you don't see a bill, there's no bill. Right. Right.
but if you showed up and put his arm in a splint, would he get charged then? No, it's only, okay, that's good to know. I always thought it was.
No, but I'll make it one better for you. Let's say we have somebody who's either having a diabetic emergency or who has an overdose with opioids. We go there and we treat them for a diabetic overdose, we give them sugar, and we wake them up, and they are what we would call alert and oriented ×3. They have their right facilities and can make an informed decision on their own. They can say, I don't want to go. Same thing with an opioid overdose. So we've now given somebody a drug, Narcan, in the event of an opioid overdose, and they can turn around and say, I don't want to go to the hospital. But we have to pay for that drug. That drug has to be paid for somewhere, and it comes out of this budget. So if we're not billing, which we don't in that particular case, that cost is borne by the town of Sturbridge, the people.
Okay.
So the two people you wanted, what were their roles? What was their titles? What would they do? Would they be an ambulance or
All of my
EMTs?
people are cross-trained as firefighter, either EMTs or paramedics. The goal is to have everybody, the town wants everybody in the fire department to be a paramedic.
Cross-trained.
So everybody in the Sturbridge Fire Department is trained as a firefighter and as either, at minimum, an EMT with the plan to become a paramedic, or they already are a firefighter paramedic. So everybody does everything.
Because we can't risk the safety of people, obviously, but what I'm thinking of, there's a trend, like I'm looking at fires, I'm looking how many more buildings do we have in Sturbridge, which means if you had, 200 more buildings, yeah, we need more fire department, right? If we don't, then that's less, important. But on the other hand, there's a trend where people are getting older in Sturbridge, me being one of them. I may need that, right? And if that's the trend, line like this, then that's gotta be filled, because if you don't take care of it, then you might cost somebody's life. That's a different story, right? So we gotta shift things around to where.
It's a very slippery slope, very slippery. We've done a great job in this country educating people on fire prevention. From the time they're preschoolers, we start teaching them about fire prevention and fire safety. The slippery slope part is there are a number of old buildings in this town, and there are a number of new buildings in this town that have materials in them that burn quite significantly different than those older buildings have. So we have a twofold concern.
Yeah.
And with 4 people on duty, if an ambulance is out doing a medical run, those 2 people left are very, very limited on what they can do at a house fire or a building fire. So that's what I mean by the slippery slope. So now we're calling area communities for mutual aid. Some of those area communities don't staff their firehouses 24 hours a day, which means that the response time becomes even longer. So this is a nationwide problem. This isn't a Massachusetts problem. It's not a Sturbridge problem. Fire safety, fire prevention, public safety in general is a nationwide problem that I don't know what's going to happen, but something has to happen.
You gonna make a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we accept the budget for the fire department to the amount of $2,179,546.
I second, if it will read instead of accept, recommend to the town.
Recommend to the town, thank you.
Okay, Larry seconds. Let me just write this number down. All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's 7-0.
And again,
Great.
sometimes you get a little loose with the motions, but we had that agreed upon set of how they're actually gonna come across in the minutes, so.
Right.
All
right,
that's
so-
fine.
Thinking about television, too.
Yeah, that's fair.
So we're going to just look at betterment and capital for the fire department, and then in betterment, I mean, protective firefighting gear, special events, overtime, water rescue equipment. I mean, water rescue equipment, new tanks, or,
The suits that we wear for ice rescue that protect us from hypothermia, the ropes that we use, the majority of the equipment we have was here when I started 8 years ago, and it's really come to the end of its useful life. So we're looking to replace that with newer stuff, which I expect will last 5 to 8, maybe even 10 years, depending on the amount of use. I will tell you, the firefighters are very, very diligent about maintenance, cleaning, care. We get every day out of that equipment that we can possibly get out of it, with the way we treat it. So,
yeah, there's a lot of pride in that particular function inside the department. All right, in the capital budget, everyone's favorite number, the fire truck, which is the Rescue One.
Yeah, really?
That's what it is.
yeah, this is the truck that we send out. It has a lot of our specialized rescue equipment. It has the Jaws of Life on it. It has some of our water rescue equipment. It has our lifting jacks for when we respond to vehicle accidents. The truck that we have is a 1997 chassis. The body on it was salvaged from a Connecticut department many, many years ago after they totaled their truck. So the truck that we have was never a Sturbridge fire truck from the very beginning. And the amount of maintenance cost on that truck is becoming exorbitant. And unfortunately, the cost of new fire apparatus is through the roof. The other downside to something of this nature is there are no vendors. Years ago, the vendors used to lock you in on a price. No vendors will lock you in on a price anymore because they're not willing to take the chance of having to eat whatever that price increase is in today's market. So I try to budget as conservatively as possible with regard to the realities of the economy. And I always make the same promise to the town that I will do everything I can to buy a piece of apparatus for as little money as possible without sacrificing safety or functionality in the vehicle.
What was the vehicle? You had a vehicle where you had a reserve fund transfer, where you had an engine issue?
Tower Ladder 1.
That wasn't this
It-
vehicle.
That's correct, is our Tower Ladder. That vehicle came back into service, I think, the end of December, maybe the middle of December. It's responded to several calls, several fire calls and rescue calls since it went back in service. Before we put it back in service, because it had been out so long, I brought a member in from the vendor, Greenwood Emergency Vehicles, and retrained the entire staff on its operation and use so that everybody had a refresher, everybody was up to date on any new theories or techniques, and knock on wood, it's treated us well since we put it back in service.
So the one that you're looking to replace now, and I didn't pull out last year's capital plan, was it kind of slated for replacement this year, next year? Or is this kind of being accelerated, or it wasn't?
I believe it was on last year's 5-year plan, and I pushed it out one more year to this year. So I believe it was actually on FY '24's capital plan. I don't have it in front of me, maybe
Yeah, I'm
Barbara
looking.
does.
It's in the back here.
So what else is lurking over there? Where's the next fire vehicle? You're gonna come in here and need another $1 million for?
Well, the
How
next thing you're
soon
gonna
are you
see next
need
year
it?
is another $500,000 for a new ambulance. Because unfortunately, that's where we're at.
But we have a plan for, like,
I
every
think
7 years.
Go ahead, Rob.
If I could, Kevin, yeah, this goes to a broader question that we touched on the other night, and the chief actually wants to sit in on this with us, along with Heather. We really need to look at a vehicle purchase policy for these large capital purchases. We have 5-year plans for each department, but with the delay on getting these vehicles and the fact that we need to lock in now 2 years ahead of delivery time, we need to have a big plan, because your question's a good one. So what are we going to see next? The thing is, what we normally might not have looked to purchase for a couple of years, we actually may have to try to do sooner, or else we're going to be without for longer than we really can be. And that's the situation now. We patched together a DPW truck because the wait on replacing it was too long and we couldn't be without it. So I think it's a good question, and, you know, we have an ambulance coming along, but we need to look at the whole policy now, because we can't say, okay, we're not going to need it for 4 years, so we'll order it 4 years from now. We're just not confident with that.
The vendors are telling us 24 to 36 months for vehicles of this nature, a fire apparatus, ambulance. And
Right, so certainly the plan for police, fire, DPW, and whatever, you know, here's a list of our assets and the expected life, and then you can figure, you know, I hope you get this fire truck, and it's a 15, 20-year thing.
this fire truck that we're talking about, this fire truck, I would be confident to say you're looking at 20, 25, maybe even 30 years you'll get out of
That
it.
goes out in the end. Ambulances, we had a plan, it was like every 7 years now. We're coming up on 7 years, but you know, 7 years is 2 years down the road, but I understand that maybe some of these, we have to accelerate the funding, because it'll take time, and we can do that. So, all right, I'm all set with my question there.
So we don't have any reserves for a lot of these then? Is that that's what we're saying here? There's no, we don't,
We do, we have.
well, this
reserve
doesn't come out of
funds.
free cash, so if we didn't have the free cash, where would we get the money from? If we knew we
Raise
needed
and
something, we
appropriate.
needed something like 5 years ago, why would we put like 250,000 one year?
Well,
we
that's-
do have
that-
those.
we try to do that, yeah. But that's a relatively newer thing, right? In the last
okay.
decade or so, is we've started to really actively start to build stabilization funds except for the ambulance one. The ambulance one's been here forever.
So we have ambulance, we have a fire one in there.
I
We
saw,
didn't-
I saw the fire one, and I thought, why isn't that fire one used for this? That's not enough money out
It's a small amount of money, because we
Yeah.
used it to buy another vehicle not too long ago, and then we had COVID, we had a few years where we didn't put as much in there. And, you know, you can figure out how long it's gonna take to buy the next vehicle, but at $1.4 million, you can't fully fund that
Oh, no.
as we go along, so we use that to offset some of the costs. And because we got a lot of free cash this year, we don't have to take from that stabilization fund. I believe it's, you know, smart to use the free cash versus deplete that by $100,000.
Okay. And the one other thing I was just, okay, Lucas 3 is the model number, okay. Because we're getting 3 Lucas 3 chest compression systems.
Correct.
For that amount of money. So I just want to make sure that was.
In the old truck, there's no salvage value for the old vehicle? You can't give it to Charlton?
The old rescue?
Yeah.
So when we get closer to contract time, we'll work with the vendor to see what it's worth on a trade, and then we'll make a determination of whether or not it's in the best interest of the town to trade it in or put it up on municipal bid and sell it outright.
We have any idea what it could be?
Right now, no, because again, the vendors aren't willing to put their necks on the line to give me a number.
Even an estimate, huh? So the 1.4 is not etched in stone though, right now, because by the time you get it a year and a half from now or 2 years, that 1.4 could be 1.8, right?
It could be, but I will tell you that I generally try to budget high enough to try and guess or guesstimate
Inflationary thing,
where the
yeah.
inflation might be. Sometimes I'm good, sometimes I miss the
Right, at
mark.
least you try, no, it's a guess, yeah, the Fed can't do it either, so.
I'll just give you a pet peeve,
Kevin?
you're talking about a $1.4 million purchase, and you got it down to $818. I would have rounded that up to a nice round dollar there somewhere, but that's what you want, I'm okay with it.
Was that you, Barbara, that it?
It was. I just want to clarify, though, once town meeting happens and the chief puts together his team for this ambulance, we will place that order. And even if it doesn't come, we will have a bid price. And so even if it doesn't come in for 24 to 36 months, whatever we lock in right after the new fiscal year is the price that we're going to pay.
Okay.
Right, I should have clarified that.
That's fair.
But as far as the quote is concerned, I can't lock them in on the quote.
Until-
Once we sign the contract, it's a different story, then we're locked in for a price.
Yeah,
But
I
for the
think
budget
his
purposes,
question was
to get a
though,
quote.
if the price is going to change between, 24 and 36 months down the road. And yes, it probably will, but we will lock in with the bid price well before that, place an order, and then that's what we will pay.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
And you never know,
Yeah.
Heather may look at that old rescue truck and think that's better than half the vehicles in her fleet, and want to use it until she can get her new stuff, so.
Called Beaver, called the Beaver Control Truck.
Yeah, I was gonna say, put a plow and a sander body and we're good to go.
Put a stand on the back of it.
So, the one thing we should, Barbara, just as a note of clarification, if you're gonna end up with cleaning up this warrant, otherwise I'll do it. You know how, if you notice a couple down, you have police portable breathalyzer 5? We should put Locust 3 chest compression system, parentheses 3, so people realize we're buying 3 of those.
Yep. Okay.
3 Lucas 3s?
Yes. That's why I was wondering if it was a typo at first, and then I looked in the back at the detail. No, it is a Lucas 3. That's the model name. Okay. Any other questions related to the fire as far as the capital improvement plan? Okay. Not hearing it. So Chief, I'd like you to indulge us and stick around because your department was, the word that pops to mind is implicated, but that sounds nefarious. It wasn't. But in another discussion that involves Heather, so I have questions that'll go back and forth between the two of you. So Heather, this would be the time
I
to.
implicate them, or?
Well, the newspaper article today did in the meeting,
No, it's not me. Go ahead.
the actual filming of the Board of Selectmen's meeting did.
What newspaper article?
Sturbridge Villager?
I didn't see it.
Yeah, you see that?
No, I want to go through your line item budget first, because that's what's first on the agenda. Whoops, I shouldn't do that.
Just in case I have to read.
I'm sorry? All right, so this is the DPW. We'll deal with that one first. I'm just trying to figure out what page it's on, sorry.
Page 9.
Yeah, C9, okay.
D30, if you want the
I'm looking
details.
at the, I'm
And
looking at the
D30
detail.
over the details.
I just want to make another image.
Feel free, Mr. Waddick, it's your account.
Heather and I haven't gotten together yet, but we are going to do that. But just an observation on the line item budget. If you look, there are marginal changes, almost none, except under purchases services. And of the 38,940, 35 of that is related to that failed diesel tank where we had to get a temporary tank, had to rent it, now we have to monitor it. And that's 35,000 out of that 39,000. So I would say that that's something we had to do because we had a failure. Well, other than that, there's been just minimal change in the line item budget. I just wanted to point that out, so. And with that,
You can make a motion if you'd like.
I'll make
Let me
it.
just ask one more question.
Sure, yeah.
Make a motion. So again, staffing level, this is the full
Same.
staffing as we always do. But where are you in terms of how many positions you fill? That seems to be a department that's always struggling to get up to
Yes.
full staff.
We recently just lost a member of our staff, so we're down another one. So we right now are down 3. We were up to only being down 2, but we're down 3 right now. We'll be posting again and hoping to recruit some new blood.
Is it like a senior position, or is this just another, like a light
No,
operator?
this was our senior heavy equipment operator.
Oh, yeah, so that takes some, yeah.
At least hopefully we won't get any more snow.
Yes, hopefully we won't get any more snow.
Include that in your motion.
What's the reason for losing, or what's the issue, or root cause?
We've just, since I've been here, we've seen to be, a couple people have left to basically retire. This person has left to go to a higher paying job. So we've had some different turnovers for different reasons. Some people have left to change their careers. So, DPW has its tough points, especially in the winter. And, that right now, the market is very, very competitive. If you have the licenses and are a good operator, you can step out and get jobs that do pay higher than what we're paying. So we're going to be fighting with that. It's the way the market is right now.
Kevin,
Yeah, Larry.
what Heather just said, I suggest we keep in mind if the discussion, or when it does, turns to the 70-30 on insurance.
We've kind of implicitly approved that because we've been approving the line, the budgets with it included.
I know, but things get connected to things.
Yeah.
And it should not be lost on the committee that decisions cannot be made in isolation. There's no Great Wall of China around every line item, one to the next to the next.
Yep, it's a fair point, thank you. But I guess we didn't explicitly say that, but we have been implicitly doing that. We've decided whether, I think personally it's a good idea that we go to the 70-30 to try and keep us competitive. And so we've been, by our actions, approving that plan.
Oh, I agree, and
Yeah.
representing this committee on the Personnel Committee, I have voted accordingly. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so do you have a motion for the DPW?
I am making a motion that the Finance Committee
Recommend.
to the town meeting that we approve the budget as presented.
Okay, do I have a second to Mr. Waddick?
Second?
Kathy Neal. Okay. Any further questions? Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's 7-0. Okay. So we move now on to town road maintenance, and these are,
Sorry, when you say we're approving a certain number, are you talking about the department requested number or the administrator?
finance, well, it would be, actually in this form, not that one.
Okay.
There would be a finance committee recommended column here.
Okay.
That's just kind of informational for us.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, town road
And
maintenance.
to be
Oh,
clear,
sorry.
it's the total bottom line. We don't separate salaries from purchases, service. Yeah. Again, it's another, for you being new, it's a shortcut. We all kind of know we're going for that one number, which is why we're being a little
Yeah.
brief in our discussions. We all know what we mean and how it will be reflected in the minutes.
Yeah, it's a good point that, new people would not necessarily understand how we're doing this. I apologize ahead of time because you're learning by baptism under fire.
Just trying to absorb the information.
That's why we have you sitting next to Larry, so we can keep things calm.
He keeps whispering certain things, yes.
It's called a curse.
Town road maintenance, $8,000, so we're seeing an increase here, and, really, that's to handle private roads.
Correct. So, a costs have been going up, and I think Barbara did provide you some backup. That number has not been raised in a significant amount of time, and costs for materials are going up, even though this is just materials, and our requests are far outpacing what we have for funds, so I said it was probably time to increase them, just so that we could do a little bit more up there, and make that dollar go a little bit, be able to do a little more improvements. Still only patching potholes, it's still only gravel and asphalt, but it's at least a little bit more gravel and asphalt than what we are currently being able to purchase.
It's not big dollars.
Kevin, if I could,
Yes, go ahead, Robin.
just also, one thing to take into account, the weather the past few years, the heavy, heavy rain, has really increased calls for this type of work. So it's, the cost is going up and it's just an increased need that the rain has just created havoc.
So you're not increasing the number of roads that you're maintaining, it's still the same limited number. So I guess it drives the question, so when you get a truckload of asphalt to patch a road, the cost for that material goes against this account versus your you
So we have-
separate those costs out?
Yes, when we go to get we're always looking at, okay, we're gonna go out in this area and do these roads, so if we're doing a bunch of private roads, and like, for example, if we go to Lake Road, we're probably getting a full truck just for Lake. And that obviously doesn't even, it starts and we patch as far as we can. So we really think about like, okay, we're gonna do the private roads in this area today when we go out, and that's this slip. So yeah, we actually are looking at it on a truck-by-truck basis.
And are you just allocating the material cost in there, or you're allocating the time of the
No,
staff?
it's only materials.
Materials, so the
It's-
staff is
The
covered
way
in
the
your regular
bylaw is
budget.
written is that it's based on just cost of materials, not staffing. So staffing's covered.
How many miles of private road are there?
Oh, I should know this off the top of my head. It's close to 10. And they're all in varying degrees of, some of them paved, some of them have road associations that do a lot of work on themselves so that they're actually in really good shape. And then there's other ones that are in far less of good shape. We've been really working, trying to encourage as many of the private roads to form some type of an association, because there are things that we can't do. We can't do drainage work. I can go out and I can consult and I can give recommendations, but I can't physically do the drainage work. All I'm supposed to be doing is filling holes. That's the way the bylaw reads.
Well, it's essentially just to let town vehicles pass.
Correct.
Okay. Jim? Oh, they're all yours, right?
They are. So I'll make a motion that we recommend to town meeting to approve the town road maintenance budget as presented.
Second.
Second from Larry. Any further questions or comments? Mike, do
For
you-
MC, it's $8,000 is what I'm seeing in
Yeah.
here. Yes. So it's clear.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're voting $8,000.
I got it.
Okay.
Well,
I
if you tell
guess
me
now we're
once.
all, okay.
That's part of that. You could have put the number in there, Jim.
All right. Any further comments? All those in favor? It's 7-0. All right, snow and ice removal. I mean, this is our, ongoing battle against winter. And I would imagine that most of this, like you see, most of the cost is in the supplies going up.
Yes.
We still 100% salt?
Yes. We use sand, salt mixture only on our gravel road areas because that's actually the recommended treatment. So when we have gravel roads, which we do have town gravel roads and private gravel roads, we do a mixture there.
Okay.
Do we have any sections of road that require low salt usage? You have water bodies or anything?
Not at this time that I'm aware of. That usually see those around public drinking wells that are impacted by salt contamination. I'm not saying we don't have wells that are impacted by salt contamination, but they're probably not from,
You're from the state, not from the town.
I didn't say it, Kevin did.
I did.
So we definitely have issues that we're seeing with that, and it's definitely a big problem that statewide, they're really starting to be concerned about. I've heard a lot of different talk about it, so it's not that we don't, but what we should say is we try to calibrate our trucks. They have recommended rates that we put it out at, so that we try to be within that rate. I can tell you that it's not always as simple as that. On ideal situations, yes, when you're pre-treating and you can get it out there and you get that brine down and the methods that we do, and it works well, it works well. Days like the last storm we had,
Or rain first.
or when it rains and washes it all away, or when we get that layer of ice, it's, it becomes a battle of public safety and, when do you go and retreat? How many times do you retreat? We're always looking at what are the conditions going to be following. We knew it was going to start to warm up. We just kept on waiting. When is it going to stop sleeting? That storm was, it was a headache for all of us. And 10 miles south, I know, because I went that afternoon, there was nothing. It was amazing. I'm like, we're nothing?
You can figure out whether you wouldn't be sitting in that seat doing that job.
I've been, living on Fisk Hill, I've seen the top of the hill covered in ice, get down to 131 and everything's clear.
Yeah.
So,
It can be elevation. A couple weeks ago, we had a storm that all the trees got coated with ice to about 5 feet off the ground. And I kept on watching, going, do I go out and treat? Do I go out and treat? But it was a rainy, wet ice, and it never stuck to the roads. Thank goodness, but you're always second guessing yourself. I sit there and just look out the window.
It surprises me, our public water supply, how good the number comes out for sodium every year when we get those results. It's a good number considering the amount of salt we apply, so.
Right.
you've got me thinking, though, when you ask that question, because in my well, when I get my well analyzed every year, my sodium number's really high. I think it's the town. I think it's the
Whatever happened to Cooper Road? Weren't we supposed to do something there with the beavers, or a new road, or something was going on a year or so ago? I thought we got going to allocate like $1 million or something to redo something.
When we talked about Cooper Road, and we talked about engineering for Cooper Road and construction, and then Cooper Road decided to wash out. If you weren't aware, we had a major washout on Cooper Road this year. We were able to replace the failing culvert pipe. The pipe actually failed. It was completely, there was holes completely in the bottom of it, which doesn't help with any structural stability. So we put a new pipe in. We've rebuilt the head wall. I brought some engineers in that I knew, and I said, so if you were going to redesign this, what would you do? And they all stood there and went, oh, yeah, no. Sometimes the engineering solution, even just standing there, if you had to follow what everybody says, and this is what I was actually looking at, is it was going to be way more than $1 million. What basically said is, we can do a feasibility study and give you lots of options, but right now you have a very functioning item. And I think we have, and now that we've done the repair, hopefully it's lasted through a couple big events since, knock on wood. We're going to have to just play the gamble and keep on going that way at this point. The ARPA funds were going to do the engineering money, and we turned those back because we had some other concerns that we wanted that potentially reallocated to. And so I said, you know what, we're not going to get to that. We just fix it. We just put money into it. Let's hope that the new pipe that's a little bit bigger and smooth-walled can handle a little more flow. And so far.
And that work got done very, very quickly. And I remember I drove by and went, oh my God, it's done already, because I figured that would be months.
Well, once we got the word that we weren't going to get any MEMA funds or any emergency funding, then we could do it in-house a little quicker than having to bid it and track it and do everything else. It's a lot of, when you get those emergency management funds, it's a lot of paperwork. So we wanted to make sure we didn't start anything too soon. And then once we started it, I have to commend my staff. They did an excellent job of getting it in and doing the work and really buttoning up. So we're hopeful that that will hold, and the only good news is we've had some pretty large events since.
Definitely, yeah.
The Beaver Dam unfortunately is on private property, because I would still prefer that the Beaver Dam wasn't there, but I can't touch it, and it's a conservation issue and everything else, but that's private property. That wall that it sits on top of, that's the property line. So as soon as you start, there's not a lot of room there. And that whole wall is an old dam, basically functioning. And so by right, if we were going to do something, we should span that whole length. So just think about how big a bridge that would be.
So hypothetically,
Yeah.
if that beaver dam did wash away or was no longer there, would that engineering team you have there say, hey, we got an easier solution, or you still have a tough solution regardless of whether you got a foot of wall,
So
or a foot of water, or 10 feet of water behind it?
We're getting into the weeds a little bit, but basically,
And I don't want to go there, but okay.
yeah, it becomes really complicated because of the new rules that everybody wants to do with dams and roads and how you span them and things of that nature. So,
So you came up with you were forced to come up with a temporary fix given a washout. You ended up in a spot where road's in good shape, Open's gonna hold out. You didn't do it with an engineered plan or whatever, and we saved a bunch of money, and now you're
Field engineered it,
solving other problems.
and
Great.
we're on to other problems.
Good, it's going.
And we conserved $1 million in Chapter 90 money that we were going to spend there.
At least, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion that we recommend to town meeting that we approve the snow and ice removal budget for, where am I? 241,661, $241,661.
Do we have a second, Larry? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? 7-0. 8. So that takes care of that. I'm going to kind of vary a little bit. We'll get back to the other line item budgets. We'll move into the rest of the DPW stuff on the other side. So the first thing, let's just stick with betterment and capital, because we've hit those up for every other department at this point in time. So in betterment, there's beautification of Town Hall and Center Office Building, 5,000. And, a couple mowers, a stand-on blower, and then your sidewalk maintenance.
What's the sidewalk means? It's town sidewalks, you just,
So we kind of have a fund so that when we have a bad panel in a sidewalk, we can go out and replace it. We usually hire an outside contractor. We have some issues down near the common where some of the bricks are gone, so we use that for sidewalk maintenance. We did some tripping, so a lot of things with sidewalks, if they separate, we did some tripping. You might see them if you walk on 2131 where it looks like it's shaved off. That's because the panel's shifted like this. It's actually cheaper to have it cut down, so that's what we do. We make sure that we try to keep the sidewalks in as good a condition as possible.
So in the capital improvement plan, I do want to note, because I forgot to do this at the beginning, we're talking about the warrant, we're still dealing with the file that's titled 2024 ATM warrant version 01, 2024-0204. That's the file we're using.
Okay.
Because as I
Not
get,
my file.
no, as I get new warrants, sometimes the warrant numbers change, so I just want to make sure that for this set of meetings, everyone knows that's the file we're using. And so in the capital improvement plan, there's a whole section for Heather, from a medium-sized dump truck to a pickup lift gate. And engineering's for the fuel tanks. And we talked about the security camera already. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments about any of those items. I mean,
the fuel tank keeps coming up. So we had a failure, we had some money to maybe do
So-
some repairs, and then
We
we
haven't,
had to take it out and do a temporary one, and now.
we haven't taken it out. The tank is still on the ground. We've put a temporary tank on top
We've taken it out of service, you put a
Correct.
temporary tank in
Yes,
place.
we
Okay.
have the tank out of service. We've had to do some environmental monitoring around the tank, which is part of our,
You drained it, though, I assume.
it's drained,
Yeah.
yes, but we have to do sampling and
Yeah.
quarterly sampling and reporting. And we have a temporary tank that we're renting, that's connected to the fuel system. We've put money in next year's budget to continue the same, for the rental of the tank and the monitorings that we're going to have to do. But we're going to have to come up with a final solution. We can't just rent a small tank forever and not take the other one back out of service. So our concept is to re-engineer both of them, both underground tanks, because the gasoline tank is about the same age, so we, don't want to run into the same problem. So let's get these tanks above grade so that we can monitor them, new double-wall tanks and new fueling system.
Is this pretty normal, all these list of items? Is it next year is going to be similar dollar amount, only different items, or is this a unique year?
So you do have, I think, in the capital plan, there is a projection of other equipment for next year. So obviously, I'm in the department that has the most vehicles and the most equipment. So we're trying to always rotate them out on a kind of a 10, I use a 10-year right now basis, trying just to get to 10 years. We are still not at 10 years for all of our small vehicles, and then our big vehicles, depending on what they are. Some of them are 15, some of them are 10, some of them are 20. Depends on the type of vehicle. A street sweeper burns out a lot quicker than a backhoe or an excavator, just because it's so mechanical. You basically think of it as an extra large vacuum machine. And then it's vacuuming dirt every time it goes out. It has a lot of wear on it, so they fail a lot quicker than some of the other equipment, just because it has such high wear items. So that will be all part of that plan, but yes, we have a lot of vehicles that are still needing to be rotating out. What I'm been trying to do is take one or two smaller trucks, like our one-ton pickups, our pickups, and one or two larger vehicles, so that we're not totally overwhelming it, and I'm trying to say, well, I think this one's in better shape than this one, so I'll pick this one, with help with my mechanic, because obviously he knows, but we're still gambling. Unit 10 wasn't scheduled to break down and need a new motor, and we didn't know that. Even if we did, we were waiting 2 years for a new truck. So now we have a new engine in it. Now we're going to put a new body in it because the body's completely rotting out. That truck should hopefully get us through for another 3 or 4 years, at least 2-3 years, so that we don't have to replace it, even though it's meeting that criteria of the age.
Maybe in the meantime, we can start thinking about putting a roof over some of this equipment and getting it out of the weather.
Yeah.
Getting it cleaned up after a snowstorm and get the salt washed off, but we don't have the facilities right now to do that.
We don't have the proper facilities to house all of our equipment inside, to have a proper wash bay, to be able to do what,
That's a conversation for another time, but it has to be had.
yes.
So it was going to be senior center, DPW, safety,
So
there were two other things here.
DPW, my understanding in the original capital planning got jumped by the senior center.
Yes.
DPW should have already come up, but yes.
DPW should have come up several times already, but it keeps getting jumped.
All right, so I thought there was a couple things added in here this year that kind of got accelerated and pulled in because of the 2-year lead time, that we wanted to get a jump on these things. So it does feel like there's extra vehicles and things in this budget. Some of that's driven by the long lead time to get new vehicles, and we don't want to wait 2 more years to replace something and find out it takes another 2 years from there, so.
And I know we're kind of like behind on accruals, and we're catching up, but I think this is where eventually if the free cash goes away, then it's like Warren Buffett says, when the tide goes out, then you see who's not wearing a bathing suit, right? And the same thing here, we got this free cash good, and we're filling a lot of holes with it, per se, excuse the pun there, right? But having said that, when it goes away, now what? So does this mean we're kind of living beyond our means and using this to offset what we should be accruing for? Because we know this is going to happen again, but maybe that $3 million is not going to be around. Then what do we do?
Well, that's part of having capital stabilization funds and all this stuff we're trying to put money into to.
And
kind of-
accruals, I think accruals will also to accrue for it, right? Wait, if you put that in the capitalization fund, fine, that's fine too, but.
What's the normal amount that we have in whatever the free cash? I mean, it's like 7 million
I
and
have
all
a
of this.
I have a spreadsheet for that, because we don't have the presentation that was from the other night. It was never given to us. Let me see if I can find that free cash balance.
I know that there's like 3 million of all of these items that are being
We
requested.
started with 10 and we end up with 7.
No.
No,
We
it's
started at the beginning of the year with $7,795,693. We had 3 special town meeting articles that roughly accounted for like $51,200. So right now, we're sitting at $7,744,446.77.
No, you're right.
So it's $7 million, less a few. That is probably the highest we've seen in a while. It has been building up over time.
Okay.
I think Barbara's given to us, and we can make sure we get it to, a list of what the free cash was over the last 10, 20 years. So it's one of those issues that we've been building it up. There's been a lot of discussions, and it'll have to be for another agenda item of what's the right amount of free cash to have, and what's too much and what's too little. Most of the committee believes we're kind of at a comfortable point here, and it's allowing us to spend down and do all this capital stuff without borrowing, without, raising and appropriating, which is increasing taxes. And we're just trying to find that right balance. But we're at about 7 million. It's probably the highest I've seen in the last 5 to 10 years. But it also, should we give it back to taxpayers? Well, we are. We're going to spend it rather than go out and borrow and take the money from year after year.
So basically, all of these, like, capital expenditures or whatever it's being suggested, total about like 3 million something. So it'd drop us down to about 4.
Let me just
I
put a
was just
little
curious if, is 4 like too low and that makes us nervous, or is 4 okay?
So 4 would put us, I think around about 10% of our over $40 million
10%,
budget.
you're right.
And our guidelines, you can, however you interpret them, it's in a range of between free cash and stabilization, about what the guidelines say. And I think we've kind of operated a little bit towards the higher end of that. So, it puts us in a okay starting point. If it dips much below that, I think several of us would get a little uncomfortable.
So if we were
There
to,
we go.
just to get to your math equation, so if we were to recommend this article is written at 3,116,329, our balance in, if it was voted for at the town meeting, would now be $4,628,117.77.
And this might be a topic for another time, but
Yeah,
how does money get built up in that free cash?
It's,
Is it a warrant that we add to
no,
it?
no,
or
it's unallocated. So the biggest culprits are usually we fund Heather's
So,
department
yeah.
for 20 people, let's say, but she can only fill 17 positions.
So it's
So-
what money is turned back, so whatever money that doesn't get spent out of a budget, out of the whole town budget that gets turned back every year, that goes into your retained.
That goes into the free cash
Yes.
for.
And it gets
okay.
certified once a year, and then once it's certified, it gets added into that amount, and that builds it up, so.
Okay.
There are percentages and ratios. We're higher than the norm, higher than what is it, GFOA and a few others would recommend for a good guidance for towns. But that's fine. They're gonna sort it out. The only thing I'm gonna say, is we talk about the interest savings of paying free cash versus going for loans. I get it. Somebody should put a number on it, and then next year, if we're saving $500,000, $250,000, if we're saving that, where's that gonna go? Because I think that should be fed back in to make sure the budget is reduced, okay? Because we can't say we're saving something.
Well,
Where's
it's
that gonna
cost
go?
avoidance. It's not, you're not saving it. So in Heather's, I think it was you in the capital improvement plan that made the thing to say by not borrowing for the $1.4 million fire truck, we were able to pay the $75,000 engineering fee or the $80,000 pickup truck that was in here or something like that. Because, you're talking 4.5%, 5%, never mind the fees that go on the borrowing costs for that. That's $75,000 right there.
That's fair, as long as we know where it goes, right? In other words, we would have spent more, but now we're not because we're saving. It is going back into the budget and keeping the cost down.
I think that should be pointed out to the citizens at the annual meeting, just, you know, just for a fact of, okay, this, we have free cash, you'll see this, but we were able to do these other things that saved us X amount of money.
Actually, it only became an issue several months ago when Ken wanted to know why we don't give money just wholesale back to the voters. He saw it happen in another town. He was very pleased the way people said thank you to him.
I would just add, not to belabor it, the other source of free cash is, one of these tabs is a whole bunch of revenue projections, you know, small little streams here and there. And the finance department, we tend to be a little conservative on those. So if you think you're gonna get, you know, $10,000 in boat taxes, and we get 12,000, well, that extra 2,000 becomes free cash, because we didn't factor it in here. You know, we can get a little more aggressive and spend more money this year, but if we're aggressive in our revenue projections and the money doesn't come in, then we've got a shortfall that we gotta deal with.
Okay.
Free cash
We're trying to find the right
free cash is a first cousin to a nonprofit organization's endowment.
Okay,
Endowment is protection.
okay.
That's what free cash is.
Free cash shouldn't fall below whatever we say in the policy. In other words, we say the free cash is 4%, then that free cash should never
Go below.
go below. Anything above it, that's open for discussion as to what you do with it. You put it in other reserves, give it back to the people. There's several things you can do.
No,
That's
it's
decisions.
more protection.
You know,
We're in free cash again. Let's go
we're
back to
getting
the
off.
agenda.
Okay, sorry, but
target.
thank you,
That's okay.
everyone.
Policy, that's all, Larry. It's just,
All right,
it's just
so-
in the policy.
Enough. All right, so if there's no questions left, we can actually vote the capital improvement plan, because we have discussed every one of the items included within it, whereas in betterment, we have not yet at this point in time. So if someone feels comfortable in moving what is currently called Article 19 Capital Improvement Plan at the $3,116,329, or otherwise basically saying approve it as written, feel free to make that motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend to town meeting that we approve Article 19 capital improvement plan for $3,116,329.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, Kathy? Any comments, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? 6-1. Ken opposes, so, you know, just note that.
See, that speaks to me.
And that's for in case it comes up for reconsideration. All right, so great, that gets us through that one. The other article that's just for Heather, and I'm sorry, Chief, I know you're waiting there patiently, is Article 15, is the road construction and repairs and maintenance. And that basically used to be in the line item budget. We moved it out so that the funds can accumulate over time and don't have to be turned back into free cash, but that we can deposit them to take on more and more road work if the opportunities present themselves.
And everyone, that was $500,000 not that long ago.
Yes, it used to be a much bigger number, but right now,
So I'll make,
I'm sorry, what are we on?
Article 15, which is page 9.
road construction, repairs, and maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
So, again, I think where Jim went, this is 155,000. Last year, we did 150,000. In prior years, we were like 400,000 or something, right? So this is, we're working our way back up towards wherever we're going there.
And we still have how much in Chapter 90 money?
It's gotta be over $1 million.
It's, yeah, it's
So we still
way
have.
over $1 million. It's still like
It's nice
2.5.
You had like 4 million, I thought, last year, and
We still have a
we're
considerable
training
amount. There's
people
some
in
that is
field and stuff.
designated for the road projects that have started this year, so
Mm-hmm.
I have heard some bad news that they're thinking that next year that might get trimmed. You know, Massachusetts, but
But
we'll
the-
see. There's a lot of push not to trim it. There was a lot of push to actually increase it because there's many towns that don't aren't as fortunate even as us to be able to put some money into, general road budget to have some, but
And this goes to part of the point, actually keeping the road up to date, not letting the potholes and cracks through it, it's a lot cheaper maintaining it than it is to have to dig it up and replace it.
Very true.
So.
Prevention works, yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those things, and we've been for a long time, this has been a focus to try and keep those roads.
and the roads are, we're doing a new,
Schedule?
yes, we're having a new pavement management done this spring, so we'll have a better idea where we are, where we're at, what needs to be done on different roads.
In the
because we
same type of
basically-
concept, where the roads are rated based on if they're high priority and whatnot? Okay. Great, I'd like to see that, when you're done, that's very good. So, do I hear anyone entertaining any motions on Article 15?
I'll make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend town meeting approve Article 15 as written.
Okay, Mike, Jim seconds. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's 7-0. Okay,
H, J, Ronick.
so that gets us through, go ahead.
This would be helpful in the comments or from the side to know where would the balance would be when we end up here, but we don't
Yeah.
have to take up any time tonight to get it.
No, but Barbara, if we could get that number to put in there.
Yep.
All right, so there's a whole series of things here. We got water sewer department, wastewater treatment plant, prefabricated office building, Stallion Hill, St. Anne's, and stormwater that all deal with Heather and DPW. But I'd like to take up the Stallion Hill water one first, just based on the way it's being funded and the way it's being explained, that why the town thinks it needs to be funded that way, which involves the fire department.
So before you go there, can you explain what you mean by funded? Because all these articles are borrowing articles. That just means we're allowed to go out, Barbara's allowed to go out and borrow the money. It doesn't
Correct.
talk in the article at all as to whether it's going to end up being paid through water rates, sewer rates, or something
And
else.
that
That's a
is-
separate item that's usually outside of the
It is
motion.
not. I went back and did all types of research on this.
Okay.
So it can be done by just and equitable rates and things like that. So being assigned back to the water, things are things.
Okay.
And so I have a set of questions and I have a statement, and I just want to deal with it because this would be Article 33. And what they're looking to do is, when we did the DPW tour, they talked about the replacement of the Stallion Hill water thing, and it needs to be replaced. What traditional in this town has done is water and sewer capital and maintenance and operation costs are typically borne by the sewer and water respectively users, the people who are on the system. The way this is written would allow these costs to be put on the entire town. So even those households that don't have water and sewer in front of their homes would be forced to pay for it. So the first question is actually to Barbara. Do you know what the number of the personal property and, not personal property, but real estate property and commercial property tax bills were issued in March? Not counting the personal property part of it, I just want to know, commercial and residential, how many bills went out?
I'm not sure, Kevin.
Do you
I'll
have,
get you
just
that
give me a
number.
ballpark, I'm willing to take a ballpark at this point. 3,000?
Probably. Let me see if I can get you something.
How many personal property?
Give me a minute.
How many tax bills went out the door?
How many tax bills, not counting personal property, because those are like, people would rent the homes and we can go inside their house and tax, all the stuff that's in town. I just want to know, commercial property owners, residential property owners, how many of those people paid property tax into the system? So the second question is then, what is the number of water bills you issued in the last billing cycle?
It's about 1,800.
So it's roughly 50-50. 50% of the town has water service, 50% of the town does not. You know, and those are rough figures. You can get me the exact numbers at some point in time. But for discussion purposes.
That makes sense. Yeah, you need
it's
to know, yeah.
50/50. Okay. So how many wells does the town have? This is for you. And where are they located?
Town wells? We have, at the IRP, which is the iron removal plant, the plant that we visited, there is well 1, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, and 5. There's 4 there? There's no 4.
But well 2 doesn't work, right?
Right.
So it's only 3 there.
Yes, there's 3 there, and then there's well 4, which is a separate plant.
Okay. So altogether, we have 4. And so 3 are located right around the water treatment.
Correct.
And where's the 4th one then?
It's at the new plant, it's at the alternate site, which is over near, on the other side, what's the name of the road there? Why can't I remember? Closer to 84, near Hammett Brook, where it comes down in there.
Oh, okay.
Where the dead-end road goes up in there. That's,
Okay, so it's not all that far away. It's
no,
all
but it's
generally
its
the same
own,
order.
it's its own plant. It has its own treatment plant. They're 2 separate treatment plants.
Okay. So how many water storage tanks does the town have?
3,
And where are they located?
St. Anne's, Fisk Hill, and Stallion Hill.
And St. Anne's is on Route 148?
It's in back, it's up on the hill in back of St. Anne's. It's up Church Street, to the end of Church Street, and
Okay.
the address is Clark Road, but it's actually,
So how do we fill those storage tanks?
they all fill simultaneously.
Okay.
They work hydraulically coming out of the plants, and the water gets pumped out of the plants, and by pressure, they fill. The Stallion Hill tank is 10 feet less, so it fills first. It's the biggest tank, and then it has an altitude valve that shuts off based on pressure, and the other 2 tanks fill up.
So it's an integrated system where regardless of physically where these
They're all
wells and tanks
connected,
are located,
correct.
they all kind of operate as an integrated system serving users wherever they are.
Right, and that's a good question, leads into my next one. So we can transfer water amongst these tanks. We can pass water from all of them as they need it.
You,
No,
in
right?
theory, yes, if one tank got drawn down, but they all basically float up and down at the same height. The smaller tanks, which are the ones on Fisk Hill and St. Anne's, actually have a higher pressure. So they will start emptying first before Stallion Hill. But Stallion Hill is a much larger tank, so it actually will empty. It also depends on the hydraulics of the system. So St. Anne's tank is hydraulically limited based on, at high flow rates, because the pipe to it and the pipes to it on Route 20, it doesn't make it, are smaller system-wise than the pipes coming out of Stallion Hill. Stallion Hill tank has a 16-inch pipe. The pipes going up to St. Anne's are only 8-inch. So you can't flow as much. So in a case of a fire, has flow limiting situations.
Okay, great, so you really can't transfer from one to the
Can't
other
just
if they
say,
need
I
it.
want to push
I
the
want-
water over there.
Yeah.
No, they're all going to just float at a certain elevation within a couple feet of each other.
Okay, great. Now, for the fire department, so, now I have to imagine that you have plans on how you're going to fight a fire department, a fire in the various parts of towns, whether it's a big structural fire or whatnot like that.
Correct.
Okay, so when there is a hydrant present, how far can you fight a fire from that hydrant? For example, if a house is 1,500 feet from the last fire hydrant, can you drop enough hose to fight that fire? And what's the water pressure like if you get
Yes, so
there?
that becomes the variable, right? We can fight a fire a great distance. The problem becomes the water pressure, right? And generally what we will do, if we have the manpower and the apparatus, is put a truck in the middle of that run and boost the water pressure using the pump on the truck. In general, when the area has hydrants, the hydrants are close enough where we don't have to do that.
Okay.
The standards are much less distance-wise between hydrant A and hydrant B.
Most of our hydrants are spaced about 500 feet.
That's generally the
I mean, this one has a personal thing. I know that my house is 1,450 feet from the last fire hydrant.
From the
On the
last.
end of the line.
Correct,
Yeah.
from the last. So now you're in, your particular situation requires us to operate in a completely different manner than we would in the house 1,700 or 2,000 feet further toward the hydrant district. So it's a completely different set of operations. And we use different apparatus.
Okay, but you have to use your apparatus correctly to boost the water pressure along the way.
So for example, at your house, we wouldn't go near probably, and this is not an absolute, but more than probably, we wouldn't go near the fire hydrant. We'd bring our water with us, and we'd call area towns in with tanker trucks that would supply us with 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 gallons at a time.
You would never refill the tanker actively during a fire.
You would.
Yeah.
You would with
So
those
we
tanker
would do what
trucks.
we call a water shuttle. So let me give you a brief example. Fire alarm comes in at your house. We know there's no hydrant close enough. We're going to dispatch an engine company and our tanker. At the same time, we're probably going to call mutual aid for more tankers. Our first engine's going to have 1,000 gallons. Our tanker's going to have 2,000 gallons. That may seem like a lot of water,
No.
but it'll be gone in less than 5 minutes. So we will start bringing tanker trucks in from area towns and start a water shuttle. So we'll find a water source. Generally, it's a static water source, or in your case, it may be that last hydrant. To fill those tankers, as soon as they dump their water, they'll leave and go fill up, and then they'll come back, and it just becomes a big circular.
So that plan would work anywhere that in the town there aren't any hydrants. Like I'm thinking Walker Pond doesn't have any fire things, but you probably have the option there of actually dropping a hose in the lake and siphoning water out if you had to.
We have several places throughout the town that we call draft sites. They're marked, there are signage, and that's where the firefighters do their training for these types of incidents. And we do what we call water shuttle training, not only within town, but with all of our mutual aid partners. We go to their towns, they come to our town, we all practice so that when the time comes, we're all on the same page and we can work together as a team.
Okay, it's good to know.
Yeah, there's at least 2 in Walker Pond, because I've seen them marked.
So back to Heather then. So when the tankers, and I asked you the other, but when the tankers are filled from the water system, we don't charge the fire department for that water.
Correct.
Okay, and this is either one of you, but would there be a way to have some type of gauge on that system when we had to fill the pumper trucks to know how much water we put into them?
Not
Right,
easy.
wouldn't the trucks know how much they're down to 100 gallons, and my capacity is 2,000, so I must have put in 1,900 gallons?
It may not be that finite. Our gauges are a quarter of a tank, 3/4 of a tank, half a tank full.
Oh, okay.
So it may not be as finite as you're asking, but in a general sense,
It's possible.
it is possible.
Okay. So, and the tankers, I assume then, based on this, are actually filled with fully processed water, fluoridated
Oh, yeah.
and chlorinated water?
If they're connecting to a fire hydrant, that is drinking water quality. Your hydrants are the same water as what you come into your house.
Okay, so we don't have some type of thing that says, we're not gonna pay for fluoride and chlorine treatment for water that's going into the fire suppression system. Okay, that's good to know.
It's the same water that goes into the toilets.
It's all the same
Fair
water.
enough. So that way your dog can drink it. So, do the funds that are normally provided in the water and sewer articles actually cover the full operating costs, plus the percentage for capital replacement and reserve fund account?
So at this time, the only reserve fund account that builds up is what we have that might get turned back just like a traditional free cash.
But
There is no
there has not been.
there has not been any built-in capital cost reserve fund built in, no. What you're seeing in our operating budget is for capital purchases for this year. Smaller capital, what we call in-budget capital items.
Water?
For water or
I
sewer.
thought a couple of years ago, I thought the
So-
water bills for the people were low, and then it spiked up, and it was like, why did it spike up? Because we were working off a reserve, and the reserve disappeared.
Correct.
So then it went up. Well, shouldn't that reserve been kept there and used for something like this?
Well, yeah. This is where part of, I've been in many meetings with Heather's two previous directors.
Predecessors?
Thank you. Where we've had that same discussion many times with Water and Sewer Board commissioners about how we're not funding these things, and these are not cheap things to
No, obviously not.
replace if something were to go wrong.
Correct.
So, okay,
Okay.
and we're still not doing it.
So back to the fire department. Do we get reimbursed from insurance companies for fighting a fire? We don't bill them at all or anything?
No, however, our ISO rating does affect
Oh, yeah, I wanna
everybody
get
in
to
the
that, too.
town
Yeah,
and their insurance rates.
yes.
So there is,
Right,
it's not a direct correlation. The answer to your question is no, but
but
there's a side.
it does absolutely affect it because, right, the best ISO rating is 5, and I looked up 5 in 1,000, right? Within 5 miles of the fire department building itself, where there's a truck, and within 1,000 feet of the nearest fire hydrant.
well, the ISO rating for the town is much broader than that. And that ISO rating for the town affects the individual residents' insurance rates.
Oh, yeah.
So there is an insurance benefit to the individual.
On the water and sewer
that's
line.
really insurance company, insurance carrier dependent, but there is an insurance benefit
Yes.
to being close to a fire hydrant
Yeah.
and/or close to a firehouse.
Yes.
But there's no hard and fast rule on
No, but
if
the
that's there or
benefit
what-
exists. It
Yes.
is there
Yes.
for people who are actually on those.
But to answer your question, no, we do not get reimbursed.
Okay, so now in fiscal year '23, which I have here somewhere, the town did maintenance on the Fisk Hill and St. Anne's water tanks using funds from the water tank maintenance account. So if we have a water tank maintenance account, I'd love to know what the balance is in our water tank replacement account. I hear crickets. Is there
I
no
believe-
water tank replacement account?
No, there is. Give me a minute. I don't have it off the top of my head. And Kevin, with all due respect,
Yeah.
it would have been great to have some of these questions you were going to ask, like, sent to us earlier today, so we could have had the answers prepared.
I kind of wrote all the questions pretty much at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. I would have liked to give you, I tried to get you a couple of questions, and we were just not connecting in a timely basis.
So Barbara, there's not a separate water maintenance
Oh, there is.
I will explain in one
It's in here.
second. Give me one
as
second,
opposed to the
please.
water fund?
Yes, right, let's see. The town to vote transfer from the water tank maintenance account number 29520, the sum of $6,000. So if we have a maintenance
So-
one,
Yeah, so that account was money set aside from the lease agreements for, it was Sprint and whatever they call themselves. I don't know what the company is now. I don't know if Heather or Robin know, but that money was set aside in a separate account. This year, we got legal guidance that that money has to be specifically going into the water account. And so we did that. And at this point in time, there is $336,914.10 left in that account. And we are looking to use that money to fund, give me a sec,
The,
article, which one is it?
it's the one for the building at the tank at St. Anne's.
Article 34.
336,000.
336, okay.
At which building?
St. Anne's.
But
needs-
that's not what that article says.
is-
That article says the water reserve fund balance. Doesn't say anything about
Correct, so
the,
I'm trying to explain to you.
Yep.
So we had a legal opinion that that money had to be now set up or transferred into the water account, which we did during this fiscal year. The balance remaining of what was transferred was the 316,000 that I just said. So it now does not get, it shouldn't in the past have been identified and captured as a separate account. It is all water revenue. So we are going to spend 300,000 of that, or I'm sorry, 316,000. And so we are going to spend that money.
so it's not 336,914, it's 316,914?
It's what I just said, 316,000 is the remaining money from what you just asked me of that. I'm sorry, 336,914 is the remaining money from that fund that is
Okay.
now part of the water fund balance. And so
So,
we
so
are
that
using
1,438,640 number you provided us today includes this 300,000 that
Correct.
used to be.
It does, and, right, and now we are going to use 320,000 under that other article, and now going forward, that account does not exist. It doesn't exist right now, but we felt it was prudent, since the town had set aside the money that way, that it be used, and then we're gonna move forward, and it's all part of the water fund balance.
Okay. And the other three ones here, the 31, 32, well, we'll just take them all up. The wastewater treatment plant clarifying, the prefabricated office building, and Stein Hill, all basically borrowing articles.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
May I ask a question on that then? Sure. So Barbara, the way, when I read those, two of them refer to chapter 44, section 8 something, and the other one is 7. As I read those, some of those, depending on the nature of what you're buying, are allowed to be purchased outside of 2.5, and the other ones with inside of 2.5. I didn't quite understand
It's
the
not inside,
outside.
no, it's not 2.5, it's inside or outside the debt limit, which is how you have to borrow under our allowable borrowing limits. And those were written directly by bond counsel. So depending what you are doing, there are some projects that are inside the debt limit, and other projects are outside the debt limit, and that's what that section 8 or section 7 differentiates.
So can you define debt limit then?
The town can only borrow up to a certain level of money, and there's money that you borrow that's inside and outside, and I'm not prepared to have a discussion about that tonight as to what those limits are. But again, when you borrow, you have to borrow under certain enabling authority, and that's what those numbers represent.
That gives me a clearer picture, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So I guess, if you don't mind continuing to indulge me, then my next part of this isn't really a question, but more of a statement. So, and I'm going to read it because it's just, it's a lot of thoughts here.
But
Go ahead.
So Barbara, the articles, each one talks about borrowing money under the applicable
Mass state law.
Mass state law. The way I look at this, at the motion that was on the selectmen versus the article, and we'll need to come up with our own motion here. But the motions just talk about allowing you, as I read them, to borrow the money. It doesn't talk about how you're going to pay for that. Is that correct?
Correct. And I'm sure that we could add language in the motion that says that it will be paid paid back with, through water rates or sewer rates by the ratepayers. I'm sure we could do that. I'd want to get the exact language, and if Kevin went back and looked at previous, debt issuances, I can do the same thing next week. I will talk to the attorney and make sure that it reflects that. But, I mean, for all these articles, with the exception of the Stallion Hill tank, which there is going to be discussion on the 16th with the Board of Selectmen. Robin can correct me if I'm wrong, but nothing has been determined at this point in time how that's going to be paid back. But the other articles that are under discussion tonight are all going to be paid back by the ratepayer.
So we
It's
can
not
clarify.
explicitly stated.
Gotcha. So we
have
can,
to clarify it.
let's come back.
We're definitely telling them, you can borrow the funds, but we have to explicitly say how we want them repaid back. Who gets it repaid back? And that,
Have we so I'm not,
Yes,
we'll go back to why we have to explain that. So, as he's written, Barbara can borrow the money, but she can't pay the principal and interest when it comes due, because she needs another funding article, which will probably come up into next year's.
no, it would be up to the Board of Selectmen to approve how they wanted the money to be collected and pay back interest, right, yeah.
But if we don't have an article to
That explicitly
to include
states how
that
it should
in
be
the
repaid
budget.
back. The Board of Selectmen get to pick how they want to do it. So that's why in our motion,
Ultimately, what you should know is when we borrow money, if there was not sufficient money in the water and the sewer accounts, it wouldn't matter what you write in the article, we have an obligation to pay back that debt.
yeah,
So,
but we can get some of that
obviously-
money from other things that are actually in this warrant. It can be, we,
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you could put in the budget, you could put in the motion that it's gonna be repaid by water payers, or, it's kind of a bad example because the water and the sewer customers aren't going away. But if you did not have enough money, you have an obligation to pay back the debt service payment.
right.
So all I'm saying is, that obligation exists no matter what you put in the article as to where it's gonna come from. So if for whatever reason there wasn't sufficient money somewhere, you'd still have to get the money somewhere else. So I'm saying that it is, I'm sure it is permissible, we probably have done it before, where we have said specifically that the debt for a certain article will be repaid with water ratepayers or sewer ratepayers. We can absolutely do that. I don't think you should get hung up on that tonight. We can add that language. I will talk to bond counsel.
Okay. Then you'll save me from reading my long statement, because I'll wait till the language comes back and I can save my statement.
Fine, okay? And there's 4,466 parcels, non-personal property. I don't know what you said before.
I'm not looking for parcels, I'm looking for, right? I mean, you're not,
Tax bills.
yeah,
A tax bill is a parcel, based on a parcel, yeah.
Yeah.
right. So that's but that includes all the personal property ones too.
No, that does not include personal property. I subtracted that out.
So they're 4,400?
4,466 real estate bills go out. Commercial, residential, open space, all the different categories.
And there were 1,300 water bills? So it's 18?
We'd have to.
So even 18 is a rough thing, so now we're like 1/3, not even 50/50. So,
I think we should see what the policy decision of the Board of Selectmen is on the 16th and then come back and discuss it, because I think this conversation is premature.
it's been presented to us to look at.
So it sounds like it's a finance issue. Are there any other technical issues for either?
No,
Heather
there
or
are not at this
Chief?
point. All my questions got answered, and I appreciate your indulgence sticking around, but I wanted to, they were basically trying, the argument that I heard both in the paper and when I watched the meeting is that, well, we can spread this out because it benefits the entire town because it helps fire suppression. That's not really true in 100% of the situations here, because in a lot of cases, you're saying when you're fighting fires out where there aren't water lines, you're doing the daisy chain thing. And in those, that water initially is coming from Charlton or Southbridge or wherever you're bringing it in from. Okay. Well,
So they can get up and leave?
And I think also, it also serves for drinking water too, you said, right? It also services for drinking water too, right? Or doesn't?
Yes.
Yes.
So, I was gonna say, so from that perspective, if worst case, and for fire suppression, drinking water, and we'll get the amended article, is prorated of some sort.
If I could, Kevin, just quickly, and I don't want to belabor this because, again, the board really needs to look at this. But generally, the question on fire suppression is sort of what brought this to the forefront as a discussion to have, is the
I
fact
can't
that.
hear you. You gotta
just for water
slow down a little bit and
if
speak
this-
clearer.
Okay, look, if this can was to, for some reason, have to be taken out of service or was no longer working, we could, and Heather can correct me if I'm wrong, but we could survive. We could provide water to the users if for some reason we did not have this can. We would not be able to do the fire suppression that we do, whether it's as much as you think or not as much as you think. But I think that that's sort of another caveat of all of this, is that the fact that this has to get done isn't just to provide water. And it may be a little nuanced, but I think it's important to know that. And again, I think this is something that really needs
I
to
don't
wait
think
till the board
that's
discusses
lost
the
on
15th.
anything I said.
No, we agree.
I think what Robin is trying to say is this tank is the size it needs to be because it needs to be there for fire protection, for fire suppression, for fire protection, for hydrants, for sprinklers, for all of that. The system itself, if you were designing it and didn't have to provide fire protection, wouldn't need a tank this size. And the tanks that we had in service could provide us with our daily flow and enough backup capacity to function without it.
Thank you for the clarification.
Kevin?
Yeah, Larry, you wanted to make a statement?
Yeah, take a look at the summary for Article 33. The last sentence is not a sentence, I can't tell. Maybe it just fell off the page, but we gotta catch these things as we notice them, otherwise they could creep into the final, and then it doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, I think we have to go through, once we get to the meat of the funding, look at all those.
Yeah, the life of this
summary
tank
boxes
should
and make
be
sure
in
that we reflect
excess
the message we
of,
wanna deliver.
50 years.
that's the end, right
Years.
there.
50.
Well, I just dragged it down so I can now see you're right, the whole box is cut off there.
Well, it's not cosmetic, it's substantive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So then we will wait on water, sewer, wastewater treatment, prefabricated St. Anne's and stormwater. All right. Thank you both. I appreciate your indulgence in answering the questions.
Well, did you want to do the water sewer budgets while Heather is there?
Thank
I
you.
mean,
We can do the budgets later. We don't have any questions on what's in there, right? Thank you.
Thank you both, you're very stalwart.
yes. Okay, so we'll move back to the line item budget. I mean, last meeting, we held over three of these, the town administrator, on page C1. I don't actually remember the reason why we held it. It was, I think it was with the $15,000 position that was, I
Yeah,
didn't
I had-
get the full discussion the other night, so I don't know.
I had a
where
question
it's
on the staff position across the street going to halftime and, whether,
Yeah.
where the board was, so I'm all set.
going. Well, wasn't there a question with that position, I mean, when we had a discussion the other night, about whether is she's eligible for benefits, thank you.
35 hours, yeah.
Or, no, it starts at 20.
No, but she's
No,
getting
the
35
answer is
hours,
no.
she should be.
No.
She's getting paid for two different
It's not a
departments.
benefited position.
We're in the line item budget for the town administrator, we're discussing that 15-hour position across the street in the COB. And
Kevin, can you hear Robin?
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear Robin?
Can you hear me?
We have to be really quiet, but yes, go ahead, Robin, if you can make a statement.
I'll yell louder. It is, just for clarification, it is not a benefited position at 15 hours.
Non-benefit position, okay.
What is the number of hours where a position becomes benefited?
20.
20.
Wow.
It's generous.
So we were able to basically ascertain that this position wasn't working as a full-time position. What's the criteria for measurement if it's going to help at halftime?
Well, I can tell you that I certainly had 15 hours worth of work. I didn't have 35 hours worth of work. And the people who had utilized, the people that we did bring in did find it very helpful. So when we decided not to refill and just cut it back down and propose it as a part-time, I could have immediately just refilled it as a part-time. But I really didn't rush to do that. I wanted to get a better assessment. I actually sat over at COB one day and got a sense of the flow. And after that, I said, you know what, we'll wait. We'll get it through the budget process, and then we'll take the time, frankly, to focus in on hiring a good part-time person. But I'm confident there was enough work to do 15 hours worth of work. The people that utilized the position utilized it very well. It just wasn't enough to justify 35 hours.
Okay.
I would add that what the town administrator has done is precisely what she said she would do at the outset, which was, number one, recognize a need and find a responsible solution, which simultaneously would serve as a test as to the breadth or depth of the initial funding. And it has turned out as we all see, and she made the adjustment.
Yes.
It's sort of like Babe Ruth pointing where he's going to hit a home run. Same thing. She said, that's what I'm going to do. That's what she did.
I'm honored with that analogy.
She went and did it.
So then if everyone is comfortable with the explanation on the position across the street, because I think that was the sole reason we held this, can I get a motion for the town administrator budget?
Motion that we recommend town meeting approve the town administrator budget in the amount of $331,012.
Second.
Larry seconds, great. H. Any further questions or comments on the town administrator's budget? All those in favor? Opposed? 7-0. Welcome back, Robin.
Thank you.
Okay, the
It's
next one.
rare that I am too soft.
Economic development is page, is that one on? Page C5. And this is a position, as we discussed, it's half paid to through the STA article. So it's 50% STA, 50% economic development. And I guess one of the
And
questions.
half of their time is supposed to be spent supporting STA.
Yes.
The other half is supposed to be spent on economic development.
Right. And I think we both have the same question, what is he doing on behalf of the economic development side of that equation?
Sure. So I pulled together a list of key things, and again, a reminder, it's a split position, so approximately $35,000 worth of economic development, if you will, is what we should be getting. Terry implemented the sign match grant, which through ARPA funds. He visits local businesses on a rotating basis. He does go out and visit them, ensures things are going well. He serves as the one-stop liaison for new businesses. He covers town events where local businesses are often sponsors and vendors. He works with current businesses that are renovating and relocating. He works on projects in the earliest stages, things that we can't, we have one going on right now that's just not ready for public discussion, and I think if it happens, it'll be very positive for the town, but those are the things that the Economic Development Director works on behind the scenes to help guide these people through what they will need to do for site plan or zoning or any of those things. He sits in on land use meetings with us to assist in situations where local businesses are involved. We have a situation going on right now with a company that's moving from one location to another in town. There have been some DOT issues. He sits in on site plan to serve as a liaison for that if we need him to reach out. He serves as a liaison to the SEC, the Special Events Committee, so he's responsible for overseeing that committee and is my liaison to that. He attends various ribbon cuttings. He works with our central chamber. I will tell you he was critical in ensuring that the chamber did not leave Sturbridge. It's a regional chamber. We kind of like having it housed in Sturbridge, and he worked very diligently between FTA and the economic development side to keep the chamber in town. He assists in monitoring our local receipts. He routinely sends me updates on those hotel and receipt numbers, not so much from the purpose of budgeting because Barbara gets those, but from the purpose of sort of getting a sense of how we are doing overall as a town. Are we succeeding? Are our businesses thriving? He follows legislative changes that impact tourism and local businesses. I will say there's a lot of talk about, like, why doesn't he go out and recruit X, Y, Z to come into town? That's economic development in a very large type city where you might be offering tax incentives. We have offered tips in certain cases. It's not something smaller towns tend to do a lot. Boston, where you have, this is not like a Boston where you have a seafront or a seaport and you've got to go out and recruit businesses to your seaport. So it's a slightly different type of work than what some people might be thinking, like, why don't we get a Whole Foods here? Well, Whole Foods already has done its market research. That's not what he would do. So it's more the type of liaison work for our small businesses, particularly in a town where small retail is a backbone. And I mentioned this the other night, 18% of our budget, that number that I had at least in 22, is based on local receipts. That's huge. And that comes from those local businesses. So having somebody as a point person is worth its weight in gold from my perspective. I hope that gives a little background. I think sometimes we just don't always know what everybody does.
Exactly.
So it's sort of a good exercise to put that out there.
I have a question, just on the better, the development and tourist funds. We put a ton of it into 207,000 plus into betterment committee.
Zero.
I mean, why not take that $207,000 where it should be and put it into economic development, tourism? We're doing everything but what it's there for, it sounds like, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, you are. So we go back to, we collect the hotel motel tax. That comes in, a chunk of it goes into our general fund. So a lot of the monies we're spending on all these other articles are funded by that. And then there's the rest of that bucket gets split, you'll see, equally between betterment and SAT. And the betterment is a portion of the overall funds that is supposed to be spent on recreation, public safety, and something else. There are three categories. So you can't take that 217 and stick it over somewhere else. You have to spend that money in accordance with
lawnmowers and sidewalks and stuff.
And things in those three general categories.
If you have
Recreation.
If you have the dog that's basically feeding the program and bringing in the money for hotels and tourism and all that other stuff, why aren't you plowing more money back in to even generate more revenue into that department? Why are you taking it in? 38,000 is pretty much nothing.
I think you're the one that brings up the issue about operating versus whatever. So given where you're going, the argument would be we should increase the salary in the budget, not the betterment funds, to pay for more money.
Yeah, his salary is split between two different sources.
Well, all I'm saying is that the money that's coming in from economic development, tourism, which, as you say, is a good amount. Like, I agree with you, Robin. But why? Because it's such a good amount, and it's so important. Why don't we keep feeding more to improve and accelerate the tourism and economic development? In other words, why isn't it 3876? Why isn't it 100? We got 200. We got $207,000
I think
excess.
you really have to justify that position is doing something. Right now,
Well,
I
of course,
have
yeah.
a better sense of what she envisions the position doing. I am not, I don't have any hard facts backing up that the actual benefits are there at this point in time. But I'm willing to take her at her word that it's here, but I
I don't
want
want to get involved
proof.
with their operations like Larry says. I don't want to get, all I'm saying is that just from a common sense perspective, if this is generating so much revenue, why not feed it and generate more revenue if that's what
Can
we're doing?
I
I'm not sure
speak
that
to
putting
that?
more-
Because I think
hang
I
on.
know where he's going.
Go ahead,
So
Barbara.
Ken, the town they established through special legislation in 1986 how they were going to split up the amount of money that came in from room occupancy tax. So as Mike had started to say, 67.5% goes into the general fund. And then as part of that special legislation, 16.25% is set aside for betterment and for STA. And so unless we filed for probably an amendment to that special legislation, that split is going to continue to happen because that's what allows us to put some of that money towards those two purposes. Otherwise, 100% of that room occupancy tax would go into the general fund. So I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, you're saying, why are we taking that 207,000 and using it towards betterment when we could move it to economic development?
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
why.
Yeah.
And if you think that by adding another staff or adding more hours to this is going to generate more than what we put in there, then we look at the general budget here and increase the staff in the time that's in there, and the benefit would flow to more money that we can spend on in the general fund. I don't know that adding additional hours in there is going to have, a monumental increase. Adding another $100,000 position is going to drive another $1 million here. There's only so many restaurant seats and hotel rooms and stuff in town, and we have a fair amount of momentum from the current staff. And Kevin, on your agree. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Robin was going to make a statement.
Yep.
Yeah, I do just, I want to say, first of all, I agree. I think we're staffed properly, and again, we go back to the 15-hour person if there needs to be a little administrative support. But I want to go back, Kevin, to what you said. I do have to say, if I have a staff member that I do not believe is performing or meeting those things that I mentioned to you, I will handle that, and I do handle that.
Yeah.
I really am uncomfortable with the staff member's performance being referenced. But I will tell you that everything on that list, Terry does.
Yeah, no, and that's what I was saying. I was
just want to be
agreeing
very
that.
clear about that. That's not my wish list.
I don't
Yeah,
think I
that's
was
not my wish
attacking his-
list. That is what Terry does.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I'm agreeing. I'm saying maybe we should get more money allocated and see if we can grow the development faster and get more revenue in. That's all.
That
That's
is-
something we look at, I would think.
Ken, that is
Ken,
superb.
I appreciate that, Ken. I always appreciate an offer of more money, but I do think that right now we're pretty well balanced. I think we can look at some point at how much goes to SDA, how much goes to betterment. I think as a town, as a policy, Barbara's right, if there's a will to change that, but I'm not sure that necessarily adding to staff money at economic development right now would be the answer. Again, if we were larger, if we were recruiting large companies and corporations, if we were working through tax incentives where there's a lot of legal legwork that has to happen, then I would agree we would need more staff for that. There's no question.
Okay. Just
But
a
I think
question.
right now it works. We're thriving from the standpoint of our businesses pretty much, so.
If you can drive with that amount of money, that's fine with me. It's great.
Ken, your thought,
We always like that.
your thought is superb. There is only one footnote. This is not the private sector, and
I know, I
darn it,
understand
we're
that.
stuck
I understand
with
that.
obeying the law.
There was nothing illegal about saying, can we fund,
Mike
hire
just
somebody
explained
to
it to
increase
you.
development? No. Go on.
Let's just what,
Kevin, I'd like to make a motion
Yeah, thank
that
you.
the Finance Committee recommend town meeting approve the economic development tourism budget of $38,229.
Second.
Larry seconds, great. MH and LM. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? 7-0. Okay, and the last one is the Historical Commission, of which we've got a really good letter, I thought, explaining that. That was, unfortunately, I don't know if MC got it, because I don't know if you were on the committee when they sent that out. So I might have to send you a copy of that.
You just sent it.
All right, so Barbara, that was a great email we got, short to the point, highlight what was going on. I know I hate to single out Jean, but, well, in the past, all the departments used to have some memos about their budget. Jean did a good job of summarizing hers. Maybe if there was like a short little summary from each department of what's in their budget changed or not, might speed up some of these questions in the future. Hopefully it doesn't add a lot of burden on them, but I thought that email response was a nice summary. So I would make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend a town meeting approve the Historical Commission budget of $4,150.
Okay. So that's on page C12 for those of you looking for it.
Historical Society.
Okay. 4,150. I have a first to approve as written with Mike. Do I have a second? Larry seconds. Any further questions or comments related to historical? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, I think that was 7-0. Great. That is on page C12.
Could you just forward that at your convenience, forward that email to me?
Yeah, sure.
From historical.
I'm gonna go back through and see what there's probably other things that are pertinent for you to have
Okay.
that I need to go back and look.
Are you all there? I lost my feed.
I'm sorry?
We're here.
I can't hear them either.
Oh, well, I don't know why the camera went
But we
out.
have each other.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear
I'm
us?
texting Bruce.
Well, the microphones are working.
Can you hear us, Robin?
There they are.
Doesn't sound like it.
They're coming.
I lost the camera.
I think that's controlled inside, not where you are.
All right.
How about Barbara, are you still with us?
Okay.
It's coming to you right now.
All right.
We'll just do the best we can.
What was the date on that one?
Let's see.
Tuesday, this past Tuesday.
Everything's here.
Can you hear us?
Right email address.
I got it.
Even though I shut the camera off, I'm hoping that helps you hear us.
Can you hear us, Robin?
No, neither can Barbara.
Back on the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, we look live completely here. Oh, well. I mean, what's left here for people to do? I mean, I'll turn the camera back on again just to see if that recycles anything. But what's left for us to do doesn't really need either one of those two individuals. Right, because what we have left are the meeting minutes of February 21st, 2024. Those were sent out. I'm trying. No, we're not going to do all of, we are not going to do D, E, F, G, H, I, and J. Those are going to be wait and see what the Board of Selectmen are going to do with them. Because if we're going to deal with water and sewer, we might as well deal with it all at once in a comprehensive way.
So if they meet and they just say, yeah, we agree, we're gonna charge all the water
Did you reach Bruce?
users, then you're
He's
okay
not
with the
there.
form of the
He's
motion, that's,
Gonna reach out to Jackie.
You know, we can hear them.
we can hear you. You're okay with the form of motion that we have? Because it does, no.
No.
So you're gonna want a motion that not only allows the borrowing, but specifically says
how
where
it's
it's gonna
being
go.
paid, yes.
How's the town people gonna vote if they don't know how
Regardless,
it's been
and,
paid?
okay, that's fine.
I have my whole statement here that I will just read at the town, your town meeting. I mean, this is,
I don't need to hear a statement. I know where you're going. I understand the concept. The question is, I don't know that we've
What's,
necessarily done.
in summary then, what is this discussion? How we're going to,
So we're gonna borrow $3-something million for those.
There's three articles.
Three articles, about $3 million
and who
plus for
pays that
water.
back? Is it the whole town, or is it the people who use the services?
The way the articles are written,
That's the debate.
it allows Barbara to
I'll keep
go
my
out,
personal,
it allows Barbara to go out and borrow the money. It doesn't specify
how it is
we're
to be
gonna pay it
repaid
back.
at this point.
So selectmen can say, we're gonna put that in the water and sewer budgets and pay it back through that when the budgets come next year. Or they could say, nah, we're gonna make everybody in town pay for it, even
And
if they're
that's
not on
what
the
their
water
statements
system.
were in the paper and in their meeting.
So, yeah,
That was what?
That's what they stated in their meeting where it was discussed, and what was also recorded in the paper of that meeting is that they were gonna pass the costs on to the entire town.
so I think we have a second bite at this, because that's maybe what they want, but that's not in this year's budget. So they're gonna need to bring back next year's budgets that would then include a line item in the debt service thing to pay it back.
We here have to specify how it will be paid back, because if you don't, they can choose any method to get it paid back they want.
Right, how can you vote on it?
You only have one crack at this apple.
So how are they gonna do that without an appropriation at next year's town meeting?
They don't need an appropriation, they have the authorization to borrow the money in this year's town meeting.
They have to borrow money, yeah.
Yep.
But they don't have any authorization to collect the money from anybody.
When it's borrowed, it's automatically has to be collected through debt service, principal, and interest. It's just, it's there, it's on the town's book, it needs to be paid back. It's not even outside of 2.5, it's within 2.5, it's within the town's borrowing authorization.
Since how?
All right, I'll follow up.
So anyways,
Okay, so, yeah, minutes of the February 21st, I know MC doesn't have those, but
yeah. Do you remember when you sent them? I usually.
after last Thursday's meeting.
Yeah, that's right. So that's 4/4.
This is the meeting we're talking about. April 1st.
There it is, 2/21. Okay. So, I'm just opening up the minutes. Has anyone had a chance to look? Oh, I love this. What is Mike? Is that how you did that on purpose?
No.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
Okay. So minutes, 22/24/02/21, approved as written, Mr. Waddick, do I have a second?
Second.
Larry seconds.
I'll just point out, there is Larry at the very last line in there. I caught that after I sent it out. I will fix that. That's as written. It was Larry seconded versus LM. I'll fix that one.
All right. I have a first and a second, I just need to know who was there. So I know how to do the,
So, me,
everybody,
Kathy, Larry, Kevin.
everybody except,
Yep.
no,
I'm not going to vote.
she would
She can
abstain in this
abstain.
case.
Yes.
All right, so all those in favor? And those opposed and those abstaining? 6-0-1. Okay,
Wasn't
Just so
there,
you know,
wasn't
right.
there, can't approve it.
all right. So, the next item here is new business, curate discussion topics for future
Is
meetings.
this my copy?
Yep.
Is there anything that we want added? Otherwise, I will carry forward the things we didn't act on to next week's agenda. And then, in addition to what's already there, you guys all have the rough agendas I sent out at the beginning. So I will just carry them forward, and we'll go forward with that. And I thank you all for your indulgence, because I know we're running a little later than we all did. I'm hoping I didn't stress everyone's patience too much. So, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Larry and Jim seconds. Any further questions? All those in favor? And we're out of here at 7-0, and it is now.